Hi, everyone. This is Ashley Becker, the Customer Success Manager at ISC and Paperless. Today, we are going to be talking about the Paperless Cloud.
Hi, everyone. This is Matt Horner. I'll be your presenter today. I am the Director of Software Engineering. We'll be diving into the Paperless Cloud, what it is, and how it can benefit your operations. So with that, the Paperless Cloud is really just an offering of our MES software provided using a public cloud provider. You may have heard of Google, Microsoft Azure, IBM, as well as Amazon Web Services, of course. And so we're leveraging one of those public cloud providers to help us provide our software for you, managed by Paperless, making sure that you can continue to use and leverage that always-on MES capability with, however, disaster recovery built in, not something that you have to own and manage on your own. I'll talk a little bit about something called MV2 and, of course, MES as well. MV2 is really Paperless's MES solution built for the cloud. So if you hear me talking about MV2 throughout the slides, that's really what I'm focusing on there and the differentiation between MES and MV2. What are the benefits of Paperless Cloud? That's generally a pretty big question that a lot of our customers ask, and a lot of that, for us, is making sure that we're able to rapidly deploy the applications for you, making sure that you don't have to worry about acquiring hardware, acquiring software licenses for things like Microsoft SQL or Microsoft SQL Server. We take care of all of that infrastructure setup and management for you with the Paperless Cloud. We also introduce the proactive support model, where we can get ahead of a lot of the issues that could pop up on a day-to-day basis with data integrity issues or just various events that occur. We can do things in a lot more proactive model going forward with the Paperless Cloud, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. It's also a managed solution so that you can focus on other critical systems. I know in a lot of cases our history has been MES just kind of runs and nobody really has to maintain it. But in some cases we have to fix issues, fix data issues, help with various errors that may occur when we get different data that is causing problems. We have access to those systems directly, and we can look and manage that directly without having to block your time to get access to logs and get access to database information, stuff like that, so you can simplify that process. We have the built-in DR solution so that if you have data that comes through from XA that is bad data, we have the ability to then roll back some of that data for you. We have different offerings based on the standard and premium solution that we have available to help make sure that you have that disaster recovery in place and available to you for those recovery situations. With the proactive support model that I was just talking about, we dedicate additional resources to make sure that we're proactively monitoring the MV2 instance for you, so that if there are errors that are popping up, there's connectivity issues, things of that nature, we will be notified and alerted when those events are occurring. That'll also allow us to respond directly to those alerts and get onto the system, hopefully before you even notice that there is a problem occurring, and we can start to proactively start to address the issue and make things run and act as normal as you were seeing prior. It just makes access to support logs, databases, anything that we need access to just that much simpler for us to address those issues. So why is this helpful? This generally is my thought is that it helps saves time for you, because we can start to address that issue much sooner. We're aware of it, we can see it, we can start to interact and understand exactly what's happening on the shop floor. It starts to give us the ability to also identify and remediate that issue, because we have direct access to the logs and other information within the system without having to call and schedule a Zoom call to get access to that information. And lastly, the big focus there is to make sure that we get the shop floor back to normal as quickly as possible. So you have MES today, and how do you move that to the Paperless Cloud? We have this in a two-step process. The first one is lifting the existing environment or existing instances that you have running on-premise today to the cloud. You may have that in other cloud providers, but you may also have it located on a physical machine that's located in your building. And in that case, we will lift that environment up to the cloud, making sure that we can replicate your entire environment and make sure it's tested and validated for full functional operation. But now we can start to move into the next phase of that, which is pointing your shop floor to the cloud environment and continue running as though the machine or the software has never moved. The shop floor shouldn't notice really a difference. And then the last piece is it's the fastest path for us to get you to the latest version of MV2, and that's the shift phase. And I'll talk a little bit more about the lift and shift and what the differences are between those two. If you're on MDCC, MV2 essentially will replace your MDCC application. And MV2 implementations then really require us to go through an education training, configuration, and conference room pilot step to ensure that you have a smooth transition from MDCC to MV2. So as I mentioned, what is lift and shift? Lift is really, like I mentioned in the last slide, is moving your existing environment up to the cloud, making sure that we can show an apples-to-apples comparison between the environment running on-premise to the environment running in the cloud. The shift is really the upgrade of your MES environment to the latest version of MV2 to make sure that you get access to the latest version, both new features and bug fixes that are made available, all the performance improvements that we've made over the last few years. It's really important to be able to stay up to speed on the latest versions, so you get access to the latest features and capabilities to help move your operations forward and staying current with the application and with being able to get access to support for your version of the application. So the MES to MV2 lift steps look a little like this. We start off with creating a test environment, which then really revolves around the idea of moving your existing test environment up to the cloud. We'll work on establishing a few things to make sure we can connect back to the on-premise hardware and hardware systems, both XA and your printers, and go through a full test and validate step to make sure that we are able to fully replicate that environment. Everything works as it was on premise. Then we'll work on migrating the prod environment forward to the cloud environment as well, where then we essentially replicate just like we did with the test environment, test, validate, make sure everything is good to go. And then once we've essentially green lighted that, we will then work on a MV2 go live. Overall, this takes about 4 weeks to migrate the test environment and roughly about 4 weeks to migrate that prod environment. And a lot of that is all dependent on just making sure that we have a lot of the pieces and parts working, tested, verified, and that some of that stuff just takes time. The MES to MV2 lift and shift steps are very similar to the lift, but we take the next step, which is shifting the environment forward to the latest version of MV2. And in that case, we'll work on upgrading your test environment first, migrate any extend modification that you have currently in your current environment, and then complete a test and validate step. This will be about a 1-week process, depending on the number of extend modifications that are currently available in your MES instance, and of course, scheduling with the extend team as well. The next is an optional education and training step, which is recommended but not required for any upgrades from, say a 4.8, 4.9, 5.1 type version forward to 5.4. In the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've done a lot of improvements, a lot of feature enhancements and bug fixes to make sure that we enhance the product to improve the software, to improve your operations. And in doing so, there's been, a number of different changes. So we'll, likely recommend that you train any of your shop floor users to ensure that they're able to migrate and smoothly transition into the new version of the application. The last piece of the entire puzzle is then, of course, upgrading the prod environment to make sure that we are moving your prod environment and your shop floor forward to the new version and completing that migration and shift step. For those of you that have MDCC, moving to MV2 is really just a matter of creating a brand new environment of MV2. This will first start off with a create of the test environment. Similar to the lift steps, we have to go through and create the application, connect the VPN, create the printers, and of course, complete our test and validate step. The next phase is then an education and training, where one of our consultants is scheduled to come and work with your folks on the floor to make sure that they're trained up and understand the new version of the application, and create any additional work instructions that they need in order to use the application out there on the floor. The next phase is the conference room pilot, and this is really focused on making sure that we completed all the configuration and process mapping back into MES or MV2 to ensure a smooth operation of the application and your shop floor users. And then lastly is creating the prod environment. This will essentially be a clone of the test environment to make sure that we take all of that configuration forward, creating that prod environment, and then now we're ready to essentially create and test and validate that configuration is complete, and then do the final step, which is the MV2 go live, migrating all of your shop floor users from MDCC to MV2. We talked a lot about cloud, how cloud can benefit, what the steps are, how those interactions with your different teams will happen, and how we migrate forward. So, if you're interested in learning more, absolutely, feel free to reach out to your paperless sales rep today, or feel free to reach out to customer success. I know Ashley and her team are standing by, waiting for any phone call, email on cloud opportunities, and looking forward to talking with you on those opportunities to move forward with the paperless cloud. With that, that concludes my part of the conversation for today. I want to thank everyone for your time and listening to us as we talk a little bit more about the paperless cloud.